Well, welcome to part 5 of this mini-series on handling input from users on a console application. Today is the turn of C#, so it does exactly the same as the Python and Lua versions. I'll just run through it very, very quickly. So what is your name? I'm just going to hit the enter key. It tells me that pressing the space bar is no good. I'm just going to put 2 characters in FR, and it says between 3 and 10 characters. Spamming the keyboard with more than 10, obviously the same thing. So we've got to put in the required amount, so we'll just put Fred in, and up it comes with the response showing how it's all automatically been capitalized. How old are you? Just enter key doesn't work. 10 doesn't like that. Let's put 6.6 as floating point number, trying entering a whole number. Minus 56. Again, telling me to use that whole number. So it's kept everything exactly as it's supposed to be. So we'll now put in a couple of numbers there. So we've got that far. Again, the same with the height. The pressing the enter doesn't do anything. Figures don't do anything there. So we will put in, of course it will accept both integer and floating point numbers, but the range is limited. So if I press 3 as for 3 meters, it says between 0.5 to 2. So let's put in 1.7. Do I like Python? Just hit the enter key. That doesn't work. Let's put maybe. That doesn't work. And finally we put in a Y for yes. And it's taken the answer there. Now we've got this menu where we've got a sort of neat bar drawn round the menu box and asking you to choose the number below. If we just press the enter as before, that doesn't work. If we try typing a number that's higher than that, that doesn't work. So we're pretty much restricted to choosing one of the 4 options here. Now this of course is brilliant, so we'll hit 1 and there we are, we're told it's brilliant, and enter to quit. So let's go through how this all works. So this is the main program which is running. So we've got the static void main here, which starts everything off, and it's actually, as you can see, very simple. We've only got a few lines. The only other class we've got here is a keyboard class, which has got all the stuff that controls that, checking the input and so on. If you've already watched the Python and Lua versions, you'll realize that they had 2 classes. They had a keyboard class, which does all this stuff, and they also had a console class. Now that's not required in C# because you already have by default pretty much full control over the console, so it's not required. So let's start with our first one here, which is to get the name from the keyboard. So we'll put a stop point in there and we'll run it. So the console comes up. I think I've set it at quite a large font, so it's already quite big, but I think it's about 80 by 25, something like that. So it's not a very large console. So let's see what's happening. It stopped at this point, and it's going to try and get a name in using the get string. So let's hit F11. And we'll jump to the next one. Let's increase the font a little bit there. That's better. So we're now trying to get this get string, and what we've passed in is the prompt which says what is your name. Then with title is true, we want it to come back in title case. We've got a minimum of 3 characters, a maximum of 10, and we don't really need row numbers in the C# version because we've always got full control of the console. This was put in on the Lua Python ones in case you were running it in some kind of IDE that did not use a console, but I don't think that really applies to C#, so this is kind of redundant here, but it's still in there just to keep it compatible with the other versions. So next step, we are going straight for the processing the input, passing the prompt name, minimum, maximum, and we're using the data type of string, which is of course the word string with inside quotes, followed by the row which is 0. So let's pass that through. So this is the process input bit. Just check we've got what is your name, between 3 characters there, 10 there, and the data type is string, row 0. So we've got a Boolean flag set up here called valid, which is set to false, a user input string set to empty string, so we just go past those. So our loop starts because valid is false, obviously, so while not valid, then we run through the loop, and this is where we get the input from the user. Now, those of you who have used a Python will have had an input function in Python. So what we've done here is to, instead of using console.readLine, I've created my own input function here. So we'll step into that in just a second. And we've also got a clear input field, which will clear, if I just show you the console, it'll clear any specific line that you want there. So let's first of all run that. So we'll go F11, so we're going to clear the input field, and what this does is to use the built-in console set cursor position, and it will set it at 0, 0, which of course is the top left corner where it is now. So it will then write a string which is the width of the console, which as you can see is set to 80, minus 1. Now for some odd reason with C#, if you try and fill the whole 80 columns, it actually spills over down to the one below. So I've just set it to the window width minus 1, and that keeps everything just right. And then we're going to write this empty string, which will fill that area there. So let's go through those. So if the row is greater than equal to 0, which it is of course, then we're going to set that cursor position, which should already be there anyway. Let me just check. Yes, it's there. Then we're going to write that thing there, so I'll press F11. So it's written it, and it's now sitting at the end of the console. And then we're going to set the cursor position back to the beginning of that row. F11, let's get the cursor back. There it is, so we put it back here. So it wiped that entire first line. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to get this input. So if I F11, this is our built-in input. So this is the C# version of the Python input. So we pass a prompt, which of course is what is your name, and I put this string ending equals with an underscore character, so that will add to what is your name an underscore, which of course you can alter this if you wished. Then we do console write, which will put the prompt and the ending together. So let's just do that. We'll press F11, so we're going to write that string in. There we are, what is your name, with the underscore, and the cursor is waiting for us to do our stuff there. And then it's waiting for us to type something in and return the contents of that line. So let me do that. If I think what we'll do, yeah, is if we go back to here, where our process input yet, so we'll put a stop in at that point so that we can now press continue, and then I'm just going to hit the enter key. So we've got no, I haven't actually typed anything, I just hit enter, and of course it's now coming back to here. So the user input, as you can see, view is just double quotes, there's no entry, it's an empty string. It says if the data type is string, which it is, because we gave it that data type, string, and then it's going to go through this series of if else if statements. So if the user input length equals 0, which it will be, because we only hit the enter key, and the minimum, which we passed in, is greater than 0, this is obviously true. So the minimum is greater than 0, the user input length is equal to 0, therefore we're going to get an error message which tells us that we haven't actually entered anything. The reason for checking here also that the minimum is greater than 0 is if you wanted to allow an empty string to be entered, then you would just set minimum to 0 when you call the getString function, so that it will allow it to go through. So let's press F11, and there we are. We're now going to output this error message using row 0, the string no input, and the user input, which was the empty string. So let's press F11. So that calls this error message function. So we've got the row 0, error type is no input, the user input is empty string, min value 0, and max value is also 0. We didn't pass those in, so they remain with their default values there. So let's press F11. We know that the row number doesn't really count here, so the message is given this default value of just pressing the enter key or spacebar doesn't work. And then if any of these other types are relevant, it will then change what that message becomes. But these are all errors that we're not currently working. So we've got our message, which is, just get my mouse over there, just pressing the enter key or spacebar doesn't work. We're then going to add to it the series of greater than and less than characters. So we'll do that. So the message now reads just pressing the enter key, but with the greater than or less than signs in it. It's going to clear that row again if I just put that back up. So currently we've got what is your name here. So when we pass through the clear input field row, it should now, let me just bring it back in for a moment. So we've still got what is your name here. We're now going to write that series of empty strings across it. So F11 there, and it's gone, but the cursor's up at the right hand side. So we set the cursor back, and that's wiped the console. Now, of course, we can write our message, which I will do now. Just pressing the enter key or spacebar doesn't work. And then it's going to sleep for delay, which is 2000 milliseconds. So we can, that's it, that's gone. And now again we're going to clear the input field, which we've done before. And of course we are now done our error message, and we're going back through our loop because valid is still false. So you can see how we can check various things there. I'll now put in the a correct response. So let's press continue. So what is your name? Let's press Fred because we know that it will accept that. So data type is string. It's going to go through these error checks again. So that one will fail. if we had only put in 2 characters, as in FR, this would have failed and we'd have had a different error message coming up. But we've done everything we're supposed to do, so valid is set to true, and of course the loop will now break and it will return the user input, which is FRED in lower case. So we bring that back to the process input, which has done its job. So we've now got the user input says Fred in lower case. So when we first called getString, we passed in the prompt, and with title was set to true, so we want it in title case. C#'s got an interesting way of doing to title case using the culture info. So you have to remember to import that globalization here, system globalization. And what we do there, if we press F11, is that it creates a new culture info based on English UK, and then it will use the toTitle case, which is basically the same as Python's dot title there, and turns Fred into its title case. So if we press F11, we'll now see that Fred is with a capital F, and then that of course is returned back to our main class, so that the string name has now been given the value Fred. We can take that off there now, and then of course it will print it out. So let me just bring that up. So at the moment we've just got that in there. So we print Fred out. No, oh, you'll notice, sorry, I skipped a bit there, is that where will we get string, wasn't it? It's string, yep. So it's returned it to that, and it went back to program. And you'll see, rather than using console.writeLine, I've used keyboard.print. So we've actually used a new print function, which, as you know, doesn't exist in C#, in the keyboard class, to do the same as you would do with the print statement in Python or Lua. So let's go back to that one. If I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So we'll press the F11. So with the text that we're going to print is this username Fred. See how I used a capital letter as in the text, which I passed to it. Then it does console.writeLine as you'd expect. Nothing new there. This is the slightly new thing, is that because we are controlling the console, we want to know where the cursor currently is. We want to know how many lines have been printed. Although we're not really making use of it in this particular demonstration, it's useful to know how many lines were used. Now obviously my text is just a single line, username Fred, so that should return 1. But what if I had put a \n new line character somewhere in the text? Then it would have printed on 2 lines. So this is using linq or link, or however you pronounce it, which is again a using linq here, and that will count how many \n's are in the text using this little formula here. And of course there aren't any, so and then adding +1, so that it'll count up how many new lines there are, +1 for the default line that's been printed out. Come on, hurry up through. Let's just go back to here, because it's going through it on a character by character basis, so we'll hit that just to speed things up. And so num lines is 1, because we didn't have any \n's in our text here, so we're going to return just 1 back. Okay, so So we could have actually, although we didn't use it, I could have put row plus equals keyboard print, because we could have used whatever that returns back to it. But I've just done it as a hard-coded add 2 to the row number. The reason being that we've got 0, 1, so we're now on row 2. So we want the next thing, which is to get the age from appearing on that second row. So let's quickly go through that. So we're now going through this get integer, how old are you? So we want to get an integer back from the user with a minimum value of 5, a maximum of 110. And again, we've passed the row in, but they're not really relevant here. So again, using the process input which we used before, the prompt is how old are you? Min value is 5, max value is 110. So same process as before, we'll call this. We're going to get the input, so I'll let it go until I can type something in. So it's right, so it says how old are you? So let's again just hit the enter key so we can see how it handles it. So here it's asking, is the data type string? No, the data type is int, because we called it from our get integer, wherever it is, get integer function here. So that was passing the string int into the data type. So int here. So that won't pick up, so we can go past that one. And then it's first of all checking, is the input length equal to 0? So the reason it's being done separately to what it was done up here is that this one needed to check whether pressing the enter key was allowed, whereas this one, it is not allowed. You're getting a number, so just pressing the enter key is never going to work for integer float or bool. So the error message here is going to be a no input 1, which is the same as it was up here. So that will, of course, error out. So what we'll do is I'll just press continue. Just pressing the enter key came up. How old are you? This time we'll put in a 8.8 floating point number, and we'll see how it handles that. So is the data type string? No, it's not. There's no error message with no input because we have actually put a genuine type in, so the data type is still int. So is the data type bool? No, it's not. If it's int or real, I didn't specify between double float or decimal, because as you know, C# has numerous data types for numbers. So it's just, I've used this kind of real word to cover any non-integer number. So it's actually data type is int, so it's going to check that. Now here's where we use the try-pass facilities of C#. So I'm just by default using double try-pass to see whether what we typed in, if I can just remind you what the user input is, was 8.8 in a string format. So we're going to see if we can pass that out as a double number, which of course we will do, and it will be stored in this out double conversion. So it's going to be stored in conversion. So let's see, what conversion currently contains 0 because that's its default value. So if we press F11, yes, it has managed to do it, and conversion now contains 8.8. So we've got the value 8.8, which is now a number, not a string. And we're checking whether that converted number is greater than the minimum and less than the maximum. So let's press F11 there. So yes, it passes that. then it's going to check, is the data type int? Yes, it is. So what we want to check out now is if I press the F11 there, is can we now try pass the conversion, sorry, the original 8.8 string as an integer. So let's press F11, and it didn't try. The try passing 8.8 as an integer didn't work, but it doesn't throw an error because this is int try pass. So this is the same as Python in that if you, sorry, as Lua. If you try and convert a floating point number in Python using int, it will throw an error. In Lua, it just returns a number. It works. It doesn't care. But this one is quite specific. We're trying to convert 8.8 into an integer. It doesn't work. It's not valid, but it doesn't throw an error. It just checks whether that try pass works or not. And as it didn't work, then we're going to throw an error which says not int. So let's run through the error checker again. So this time our error type is not int. So we are given the default message as before. Then we're going to go through, here we are, error type is not int, and we change the message, sorry, into try entering a whole number. 8.8 doesn't cut it, so let's F11 that, add the fancy bits to the message, and the message now reads try entering a whole number. 8.8 does not cut it. So that's our error being checked again. So we'll run that through. So this time we'll put in a proper value. Let's put 66, and it should accept that. So we'll just very quickly run that through. It's F11. So we're going to try the double. Can we pass it out as a double? Yes, we can. Can we try pass it as an integer? Yes, we can. Valid is true. So this has accepted our answer there. So now it will return it, and we can now print that out. So we'll return that back to. Now the way this works is that so far our user input, if I just press F11, our user input is 66 as a string. So we've got a string out of it. Now with the Lua and Python versions of this, because you can change the data type of a variable, we just simply return the variable in whatever data type it's been converted to. Whereas here, we specifically need to return an integer. We know that it can be converted because we've already tried it in our function earlier. So now we just do a straightforward convert to int32 user input, knowing that's going to return an integer value to be printed out. So at the moment, if I just hover it over, user input is 66 as a string. So if we press F11, it will convert it, and you will get the age, if I just press F11 again, is 66 as a number, integer. So that's how that gets the conversion automatically done. Then of course we print that out using the keyboard print statement again. I'll go from there. Let's hit the continue button. There we go. So it's accepted that. It works very similarly for the floating point numbers. So it checks for zero entry. It converts whatever we type in into a double. And then, of course, it will skip a stage because we're not checking for an integer. So we know that's going to work. So I'll just put in a valid value there. So that's accepted that. Now it's waiting for, sorry, let me just hit the green button. Now it's asking for the Boolean value. Now, as I want to do both the Boolean value and drawing that menu, we've already reached half an hour. I'll cut that short at this stage, and we'll continue with that on the next video.